Hi, I'm audio description writer Justin Soul, and you're listening to the Audio Description Narrators of America Know Your Narrator series, Beyond Your Narrator episode.
Today we go beyond our narrator and talk with Teri Grossman, who is an audio description writer, audio description trainer, and audio description supervisor. Thanks for joining us, Teri.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start by asking what you love about audio description.
I think the thing I love the most is the variability of it. Sitcoms, after a while, after you've written a bunch of sitcoms or even voiced them, get a little rote, but it's fortunate that the company I work for gets a wide variety of types of video. We've been getting commercials, for instance, which is totally new. We've been getting video in which the client has informed themselves about the topic and wants what we call extended description, in which you stop the video, and that opens up a huge, huge opportunity to obviously describe too much or to describe it perfectly and get exactly what the client wanted in that space and from that particular visual. And so that's really been fun. I see it as a challenge, and it's like, how would you do that? And then you try to figure it out.
It sounds like with that variability, that the conversation, even on your client's side, is going beyond just, okay, do audio description, that you're really getting into a lot of different, well, you said it, variability, that extended description. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
We got an opportunity to do, actually, apparently they asked a couple of companies to turn in, and it was from the U.S. Geological Survey. So it was a federal agency. So that was interesting. And it was just nonstop talking, lots of head cases and nonstop talking, which you get a lot of in description. In general, all kinds of description. So in this instance, they specifically said they wanted to have extended. So now you look at the images and the kind of the story they're telling a little differently, because you don't want to bore people to tears and going on and on and on. So you're still picking the salient, most important things, but you can do it a little differently. And so one of the solutions we came up with was to incorporate some of the text on the screen in the description. So we weren't breaking things up always to do that. And so that became real interesting. And we also, I'm fortunate to work for a company that has a lot of feedback from blind people about what we do. So we got a group of description quality specialists on a Zoom conference, and we went over this video. And so I was able to say, okay, in addition to what I've described, also here is X, Y, and Z. And then they could hash it out. And it's like, I'd rather hear about X than what you chose. And so it's like, okay, so then, I write something on the fly and we tinker with it and try to perfect it. And so it was a real interesting experience. And it opens up everything, but you still have to be concise and clear and serve whatever the project is. In this case, it was an informational project about, it was science-based. So it was quite interesting. And I learn a lot from a lot of the videos we do, particularly the documentaries.
That's fascinating on so many levels, Teri. The first thing I'd love to ask you about is the feedback. It sounds like when you get feedback from our blind and low vision audiences, that actually changes the quality and the excellence that you're providing. Can you talk a little bit about why that means so much to you or your company?
Well, in one way, I feel like I'm describing for my friends. These are people I work with, a lot of these people I know. And so it's important to me to get it right for them. And so it's always a learning experience about, and you can't get wedded to what you've done. You have to be open to saying this could, and always being open to this could be better. And they allow me to make those changes and improve on a script that becomes then a team effort.
Very cool. Describing to friends, that really syncs a lot with some of the interviews that we've had with the voice talents, in that they are bringing certain intentions to the way that they read your words or other audio description writers' words, so that when you're writing to friends, or they're voicing your words to friends, or to bringing those intentions, that definitely changes the experience for the audience, and hopefully in a way that the audience is fully immersed in the story. Can you talk a little bit about how your writing for friends, so to speak, can be done in such a way that the audience is most immersed in the story?
Well, I think you need to really engage in the material because, again, you're writing for your friends. You want them to enjoy this. Hopefully you enjoy the project, but that's not a requirement. You always have to respect the material and do your best by it, again, for your friends, and you don't know who's listening. I also, in my life, do live theatrical description. And that's a situation, again, I usually don't know the people I'm describing for, but when I stay after and I say I'll be in the lobby and for any questions and comments you may have, the reaction I get from the audience is that they really think they know me because of this. I'm the voice in their ear through this entire 3-hour theatrical production, and they come to connect with me in a way that's really it's very fun and unexpected. I have found that to be lots of fun. And then it's nice when they feel they know you, they can give you feedback that is honest, that I was confused about this, or it was unclear to me what that was. And that's really helpful. And it's the only way you get better.
It's great to hear about that engagement and connection. Let's pivot a little bit to your supervising audio description writers. I'm guessing there's a lot of assumptions that new writers have about what audio description has. What are some of the things that you like to share when you're teaching or coaching or supervising writers that kind of interrupt the assumptions?
If it can be shorter, it should be shorter. And that's really hard for people who come to this with a writer's sensibility. They fall in love, and I've done it too. You come up with this just elegant, lovely phrase, and it just fits the visuals so beautifully, and it won't fit. It's just not going to fit here, and you're going to have to rewrite it or kill it altogether. And you kill your child right there, and it's sad and painful. That's one of the things that happens. We get people explaining the story, and so the explaining becomes part of the don't interpret, not your personal opinion. Those kind of things are things we kind of weed out. And a lot of it is telling them whatever your English teacher told you to do, I'm probably not going to want that, which I think is hard for them. I'm very similar to the English teacher. I don't want sentence fragments unless they're absolutely necessary. I want short declarative sentences. So long phrases and subordinate clauses and all those things, not usually effective because this is being listened to. And that's really, I think, the demarcation. You and I get to look at it. You're doing your voiceover where you get to look at it, and you're reinforced in the meaning by the words on the page. My audience doesn't get that opportunity. They hear it once. I mean, now with streaming, you can play it back, but you just get one opportunity to get the point across. And so tightly worded sentences that are very clear is really the goal.
Thanks for that answer. That's great. Let's go back to your background in history. How did you start writing for audio description?
Quite by happenstance. My uncle was a volunteer reader with the local radio reading service, and you read the newspaper in the day before there was all this automated text to speech and all that kind of stuff. So I'm showing my gray hair here. And he said, "Hey, would you like to read on the radio the grocery ads for blind people?" And I kind of like, well, yeah, blind people eat. I get that. Sure. Why shouldn't they know what's on sale at the local supermarket? So we would spend 2 hours in the morning reading articles from the LA Times and the local daily newspaper from the San Fernando Valley, because that's where the radio reading service was located. And it was, I met the woman who was the general manager of the radio reading service. She's a blind woman. And she actually got me involved in the first training for live theatrical description here in Los Angeles. And so Jolie Mason is the reason I got involved, I think at all, my uncle and Jolie. And then Rick heard me describe a play at the local theater and decided I had possibilities as a writer. And so kind of it went from there.
From grocery ads to live theater.
Yes. Yeah. Peaches, 98 cents. We used to have fun with the grocery ads because you're supposed to read the news pretty straight. There's no interpretation. Once again, no interpretation. So if you didn't like the political article you were reading, you were not to let on about that. And there were readers that had trouble with that. If the local politician had done something they didn't care for, your sarcasm is not to do that. But we did the comics and we did the horoscope. And I did have trouble with the horoscope not laughing. I will confess.
It's a high wire act, I bet.
It is. You're not supposed to do it. But one day I completely lost it and I started laughing. And fortunately, when I got off the air, Jolie was laughing too. So it was all right.
On the challenges of live description. And
yes, indeed.
I can't help but think that all that experience, whether it's comics or horoscopes or political ads, that helped kind of frame how you do description now, that those experiences must have helped with movies and TV shows and even geological surveys.
Indeed. And there's a lot of things that are thrown our way that you didn't know anything about as a describer. And I got to the point, we did a special about the blind guy who climbed Mount Everest, Eric Weinmayer. And I got to the point where I could distinguish some of the geography on the mountain peak in writing the description for his documentary. So it's surprising what you pick up. And, you don't know terminology about ice or the difference between a crag and a peak or those kinds of things. And you have to look things up and find out. That's kind of fun too.
It sounds like that goes back to the concise clarity that you emphasized earlier, that it just brings the visuals all the more to life.
It does. And if you can use the terminology of the subject and get the opportunity to describe more fully what it is, then you've improved. I learned something in the course of doing the project, and hopefully my audience does too.
When you talked about the horoscope humor or trying to keep it from coming out, I can't help but think that there's been some other challenges that you've found in audio description writing that you're probably pretty proud that you found a way through. Can you name some other examples?
Gosh, challenges sounds a little melodramatic for me, but
I'd like to make it high stakes.
Okay.
But let's rephrase it.
Job done. I'll go with challenges.
Okay.
I think spending enough time with visually impaired folks to gain a better understanding of their interaction with the world and therefore what they need from the description. I think in a nutshell would be it, but it's not so much a challenge as it's an opportunity, and it's something that is ongoing. And you learn lots of things from lots of different people.
And I love that message of opportunity. Talk about clarity. Let's talk about where audio description is going. You've already mentioned that now commercials are coming, the different kinds of content, whether it's comedy or drama or action, and also extended description. Just based on where you see things going, or maybe even better, where you'd like to see things going. Can you talk about where you'd like to see audio description head?
Oh, I think in a nutshell, as I tell my students, I'd like there to be more description, and I'd like it to be better. We've had an opportunity with Netflix going in very heavily into providing description to see a real increase, measurable increase in the amount of programming that's available with description. It's just changed everything. It is, I think, encouraged some of the other providers, both streaming and theatrical, to get in it and get it done. And now what we need to do is spread the word. One of the things you're doing too is spread the word about what are the best practices, what can we do to make it better. It's unlikely there's any script anywhere that can't be better.
One of the challenges in that message is there's a legitimate fear that quality, in other words, better, going for the best, is going to stop the quantity. In other words, there could be a perception that, well, if we get better quality, that's going to take away from more content, and I don't want to lose more content. Can you talk about that binary assumption?
Yeah, no, that can be a very difficult binary choice. One of the problems I've always had, I have done a couple of presentations to people about description, and of course they kind of start out understanding captioning and try to correlate the two, and there's certainly points of similarity. One of the real points that is not similar at all is the cost. The cost is dramatically more expensive, and it requires real teaching them why that is the case, and therefore what corners you shouldn't be cutting to get quality description. So some people are trying to drive the cost down, and one of the things they're doing is they're doing automated synthetic voices. So, kind of text to speech. And some of that technology is getting impressive, but I will put any machine up against you any day, knowing full well that my bet is on you, and I will win that bet every time. Wow. Because you're going to do a better job. You're going to be nuanced in a way the automated is not. And it's, again, we go back to it's personal. You hear the human voice, and that makes a difference.
When I hear audio description that just fits in that pocket where I'm so into the story, it's the voice talent and what she's bringing to it. When I hear the voice, it's just it almost becomes a part of it. And for you to mention the nuance that those synth voices are getting very conversational, but my understanding is that when you're listening to text to speech, for example, on a screen reader on an iPhone or an Android device all day and just getting information, that it takes a lot of energy and effort as well.
Yes, and it's going back to the listening as opposed to reading, and the amount of effort that it's required to listen is actually different and more draining on you than it is to read. So that's part of it. One opportunity is gone, but you definitely need to listen carefully. So the human voice is, I think, easier to listen to, which would make sense. We react to, as humans, react to human voices.
Thanks for sharing that. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience?
I'd like them to think about the description they're listening to and how it can be better. And, pass that along to people who can do something about it.
That's so clear and concise.
It's my job.
Teri, it's such a joy to reconnect with you every single time.
Well, I'm happy to do my part and talk about my favorite thing.